And I believe out of anger, he struck young Malia in the head. And that when she fell to the ground and she started bleeding from her nose and bleeding from her ear.
What did you think when she moaned in pain? Did you just step over her body when crossing over to the next room?
Damien was behind them. He said, Kelly. She turned around and he shot her in the face.
In January 2013, Rema Sabir passed away while in the care of her nanny, Aisling Brady McCarthy, in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Initial medical findings suggested the girl's passing may have been due to serious injury, leading to McCarthy's arrest and indictment.
That was such a rush to judgment.
She remained in custody for over 2 years as her legal team questioned the findings, pointing to Rema's medical history, which included frequent illnesses, existing health conditions, and previously documented injuries that occurred outside of McCarthy's care. Concerns were also raised about whether all relevant medical records had been provided during the legal process.
So many questions are being raised about baby syndrome that there are more dismissals of pending cases than there are of new indictments.
In 2015, after further expert reviews and new medical insights, the state medical examiner revised the cause of death and reclassified the manner of death as undetermined. As a result, prosecutors determined they could not move forward with the case, and all charges against McCarthy were dropped. She later returned to Ireland. In early 2016, 75-year-old Nancy Parker of Exeter, New Hampshire, fell inside her mobile home and was left lying on the floor for 5 days, unable to move and surrounded by her waist. Despite clear signs of suffering, her daughter, Catherine Saintil Brown, and granddaughter, Maritel Saintil, who lived with her, did not seek medical help. When emergency responders finally arrived, they were met with what they described as ungodly conditions. Parker was rushed to the hospital, where she was diagnosed with a deadly infection caused by prolonged immobility and unsanitary conditions. She died 3 days later. Authorities determined that the delay in providing care significantly contributed to her death. Following an investigation, both women were charged. In 2017, Maritel Saintil was convicted of negligent homicide and failure to report adult abuse, though acquitted of criminal neglect. The court sentenced her to 2 to 4 years in prison, with 1 year suspended for good behavior. In 2018, Catherine Saintil Brown was convicted on similar charges, including criminal neglect.
Did you sit on the couch and watch television while she laid on the floor? What did you think when she moaned in pain? Did you just step over her body when crossing over to the next room?
During the hearings, some family members expressed outrage over the inaction.
Was she perfect? Of course not. Was she kind? You bet.
She lived in filth, covered herself in filth, and that was her choice. Maritel did the wrong thing. I know that. But the conditions of her upbringing, I believe, made a huge impact on her abilities to make good choices, normal choices.
Catherine's aunt pointed to a dysfunctional family background and pleaded for mercy.
To leave anyone, no matter how difficult or how stubborn they are, to lie like that and to die like that is not acceptable.
The judge emphasized the cruelty of ignoring a dying woman's needs, not only during the 5 days on the floor, but also during her final moments in hospice, when the family failed to notify other relatives. Catherine received a sentence similar to that of her daughter Maritel Saintil, which was 2 to 4 years in prison. In June 2018, 20-year-old Brandon Chickleys went missing after leaving his home in Westminster, Massachusetts, to visit family. His body was discovered weeks later, on July 10, 2018, along Route 119 in Range, New Hampshire. Investigators traced his last movements to the home of Julia Enright, a former high school classmate and ex-girlfriend. Enright's property was further linked to the crime when Chickleys' was found in a treehouse on her family's land.
It was determined that the victim's was present on the stairs leading to the treehouse, on the inside of the treehouse, under the treehouse, and in the defendant's vehicle.
Cell phone records confirm that Chickleys had been at Enright's home before he disappeared, and his car was found miles away from where his body was located. Enright was arrested and initially charged with first-degree murder. During her trial, Enright claimed that she killed Chickleys in self-defense after an alleged sexual assault in the treehouse. However, prosecutors argued that she had lured him there intending to kill him, allegedly as a gift for her boyfriend, Jonathan Lind. Evidence against Enright included journal entries expressing violent fantasies and text messages discussing her desire to kill. Enright and Chickley's high school friends couldn't make sense of the murder.
Her hair is completely different. She's got a lot of piercings that she didn't have. It makes sense, but it doesn't, because I knew she was always into she was really into pocket knives and stuff. Oh, cool. And she would take pictures of the knife in her mouth and all that. I mean, it's just a little confusing.
In November 2021, Enright was convicted of second-degree murder. In March 2022, she was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Lind, who was also implicated, faced charges for assisting in the disposal of Chickley's body and misleading investigators. In 2003, 18-year-old Kelly Bullwinkle, a college freshman from Redlands, California, was living a hopeful and ordinary life. Among her circle of friends were Kinsey Nordman and Damian Guerrero, two individuals she trusted deeply. On the evening of September 13th, Kelly was invited by them to San Mateo Canyon under the pretense of hanging out. What unfolded that night was a shocking betrayal. Kelly lost her life, and the people responsible were the very friends she thought she could rely on.
Kinsey and Kelly were walking along the path. Damian was behind them. He said, "Kelly." She turned around and he shot her in the face. Damian then handed the gun to Kinsey. The gun jammed. Kinsey handed the gun back to Damian. Damian cleared the jam in the gun, and then Kinsey then fired the shot.
In an effort to cover their actions, Kinsey and Damian created a false alibi, claiming to have gone out to a movie and dinner.
They created a false alibi with the movie and the dinner, and then pretended they didn't know what had happened to her until her body was found, and at first continued to deny until Kinsey was the first one who told the police the truth.
Kelly's disappearance remained a mystery for weeks, until her body was discovered in a shallow grave, hidden beneath debris. The case quickly drew national attention and was later adapted into a Lifetime movie. Kinsey Nordman was convicted of first-degree murder in 2005 and sentenced to 45 years to life. Guerrero's initial trial ended in a hung jury, but he later took a plea deal in 2008, admitting to second-degree murder and receiving a 15 years to life sentence. Nearly 2 decades later, in early 2023, Guerrero was granted parole, despite firm opposition from Kelly's family, the community, and the district attorney's office. In April 2019, police in Rochester, New York, responded to a distressing scene at an apartment on North Clinton Avenue. Inside, they discovered 23-year-old Cherylyn Jackson fatally wounded, the result of a violent encounter that reportedly unfolded in front of her daughter. Her death shocked the local community and devastated her loved ones. Soon after, 27-year-old Ronald Pilgrim Jr. was arrested and formally charged with her murder. During his arraignment in court, Pilgrim made a startling outburst, admitting, "I did it," as he was led away.
Quiet, please, in the courtroom. Sir, your name? Sir, your name?
Good morning, Your Honor. Daniel Mistrella with and on behalf of Mr. Like her.
Matters on for arraignment. Waive a reading.
It is so waived. We acknowledge receipt of the time making the point of ISIS and not guilty plea be added on behalf of the client.
Mr. Pilgrim, because of the classification of offense, that being a Class A felony, I must hold you no bail or release. I believe, counsel, you have an application at this time?
I do too, Your Honor. First of all, I request that at the present time that my appearance be noted as provisional.
So ordered.
Secondly, I would ask that pursuant to CPLR 730 that the court order an examination regarding my client's fitness to proceed at this time.
May 13th, 9:30 for 7:30 exam. May 13th?
Your Honor, I am going to serve Mr. Mistrella and the defendant with the grand jury notice by each of them.
Wait.
May 13th.
Sir, wait.
You're all set.
No, I did it, man.
You know you did it.
Following the arraignment, mental health evaluations found Pilgrim unfit to stand trial, and he was committed to the Rochester Psychiatric Center for treatment. The legal process was paused with the expectation that proceedings would resume if and when his competency was restored. In October 2022, a road rage incident near the Mall of New Hampshire led to the tragic death of 45-year-old Zamal Kardakovich. Kardakovich, a father of 3, had been driving when he became involved in a dispute with Tyrese Harris, 22, who was driving an SUV. Witnesses reported that after being cut off by Harris, Kardakovich got out of his vehicle and approached Harris's SUV. In response, Harris shot Kardakovich, resulting in his death at the scene. Harris fled the scene, but was later apprehended by police following a high-risk traffic pursuit. Initially, Harris faced charges related to drug possession, but the charges were soon upgraded to include second-degree murder, reckless conduct, and falsifying physical evidence. The prosecution argued that Harris acted recklessly and without justification, while the defense claimed he had acted in self-defense. In July 2023, the jury found Harris guilty of all charges, and in September 2023, he was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison for second-degree murder with additional suspended sentences for the other convictions. In June 2021, Nicole Jackson Maldonado and a boy ran away from a home of care in Enterprise, Florida. They broke into a house, armed with a shotgun, handgun, and an AK-47 before opening fire on deputies who arrived on the scene. After a standoff, Jackson Maldonado aimed her shotgun at the officers, prompting them to shoot and wound her. No deputies were injured, but the incident raised concerns over juvenile justice and mental health. In 2022, Jackson Maldonado rejected a plea deal of 20 years in prison, followed by 10 years of probation.
I think taking a trial is like kind of better than just taking a plea deal or anything, so I kind of think this is my choice to do that.
The judge warned her that rejecting the plea and going to trial might lead to a life sentence.
If you were to be convicted as charged, you have a possible life exposure, which would mean the rest of your natural life would be served in prison. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
By January 2023, she decided to accept a plea agreement. She pleaded no contest to charges, including attempted first-degree murder, and was sentenced to 20 years in state prison, followed by 40 years of probation. Meanwhile, her co-defendant was tried as a juvenile and sentenced to a maximum risk assessment program with the possibility of being released before turning 21. In early 2023, Richard Carlson's body was found in Prout Park, Manchester, New Hampshire. Police later charged 39-year-old Jonathan Beul with second-degree murder. They accused him of brutally attacking Carlson, a man he did not know. The violent and unprovoked nature of the crime deeply affected Carlson's family, who had been seeking justice for his death.
This is an innocent who was violently, viciously murdered. He was a good man. He was a very good man. I think everybody needs to know that.
More than a year later, in early 2024, Beul was scheduled to enter a guilty plea as part of a plea agreement in court. However, as the hearing began, the judge announced that the plea deal could not be accepted due to concerns raised by the defense.
We thought closure would be something that we were able to obtain today. It takes a lot to come down and have
nothing happen.
Have the rug pulled out from under your feet.
For now.
That's what it feels like.
This unexpected delay caused further emotional distress for Carlson's family, especially his sister Gail, who had prepared herself to face the man accused of her brother's murder.
So there's really not much that I can talk about other than that the judge would not accept a guilty plea at this time.
Prosecutors expressed their regret for the added pain caused by the postponement. In the end, Beul eventually pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 30 years to life in prison. In October 2012, 19-year-old Lizzie Marriott, a University of New Hampshire student, went missing after she planned to visit a friend, Catherine McDonough, in Dover. Lizzie was last seen on the evening of October 9th, and after failing to return, she was reported missing the next day. Despite a wide search, her body was never found. Later that year, in December 2012, McDonough was arrested for obstructing the investigation and was implicated in Marriott's disappearance. She eventually pleaded guilty in 2013 for her role in hiding Marriott's fate.
It's entirely speculative, and I think it does a disservice to her family, who's hurting very much for the loss of their daughter, to draw any type of connection between the two. The search is still ongoing by patrol.
As the investigation deepened, attention turned to McDonough's then-boyfriend, Seth Mazzaglia. In 2014, Mazzaglia was convicted of first-degree murder for his involvement in Marriott's death. The trial revealed that he had assaulted Marriott, and her death resulted from the incident. McDonough's testimony was crucial in the trial, and Mazzaglia was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He later appealed, but the New Hampshire Supreme Court upheld his conviction. In May 2017, Sabrina Galuchia, 23, was fatally stabbed outside a Concord, New Hampshire apartment during a marijuana transaction with Deswan Jetta. Jetta took the marijuana and fled, prompting Galuchia and her friends to pursue him. In the confrontation that followed, Jetta allegedly used a knife, causing Galuchia's death. He was initially charged with first-degree murder, but was later convicted of manslaughter after claiming self-defense. Before his sentencing, questions arose about Jetta's mental fitness to stand trial due to his troubled upbringing, including drug addiction, abuse in foster care, and mental health issues. However, a state psychologist testified in 2024 that Jetta understood the legal process and the seriousness of the charges.
He did not appear to be experiencing hallucinations, so in other words, responding to voices in his head, talking to himself, laughing to himself. His thought process was organized and logical.
The defense pointed out his history of mental illness.
He was hospitalized for mental health treatment at a young age, correct?
Correct.
As an adolescent?
Correct.
As a teen?
Correct.
And as an adult?
Correct.
Prosecutors also highlighted jailhouse phone calls where Jetta appeared to understand the situation and possibly manipulate it, stating, "If they think I'm crazy, I'll act crazy."
During one phone call, the defendant said, quote, "They think I'm crazy, I'll act crazy," end quote.
Yes.
The court ultimately ruled that Jetta was competent to stand trial, and further legal proceedings are ongoing. In February 2020, he was sentenced to 15 to 30 years in prison, expressing remorse for the tragic outcome. In March 2024, Sergeant Thomas Sanfratello, a respected 54-year-old deputy with over 3 decades of service in the Genesee County Sheriff's Office, was working a special duty shift at Batavia Downs Casino in Batavia, New York. That night, a disturbance broke out involving 39-year-old Lindsay Wilcox and her fiancé, 33-year-old Michael Elmore, who had been denied alcohol and were asked to leave due to their unruly behavior.
She began with the physical confrontation of the security guard, and from that, the arrest that was being effected by Sergeant Sanfratello. So in that sense, she started the events which led to the death of Sergeant Sanfratello, but legally, her responsibility ended when she was placed under arrest for the assault.
Wilcox initiated a confrontation by physically attacking a security guard, prompting Sergeant Sanfratello to intervene. As he attempted to arrest Wilcox, she resisted and struck him. The situation turned deadly when Elmore intervened, attacking the sergeant.
She pulled away from him, slapped him, and then he arrested her, controlled her to the ground, and then her fiancé then took it upon himself to physically attack the officer.
Despite officers' attempts to use a taser, Sanfratello became unresponsive during the assault and later died from his injuries. Legal proceedings followed swiftly. Wilcox pleaded guilty to second-degree assault in November 2024 and was sentenced in early 2025 to 6 months in jail and 5 years of probation. Having already served her jail time, she was released with no further incarceration. Meanwhile, Elmore was charged with aggravated manslaughter and sentenced in December 2024 to 20 years in prison, followed by 5 years of post-release supervision. In November 2023, Stratford police responded to a call on First Crown Point Road, where they found a severely injured woman beneath a blanket and 71-year-old Guy Leighton Sr. standing nearby. Leighton admitted to hitting her with his SUV, though he offered few details.
He didn't go into any details on how or anything like that. He just said that he ran her over. He did it.
The woman had gone to the property to serve custody paperwork related to a family dispute over a dog. Her daughter, who was at home during the incident, informed officers about a security camera pointed at the driveway. Footage later showed Leighton hitting the woman, reversing over her, and then driving forward again. Leighton claimed he didn't see her in the dark and thought he had struck something else. However, prosecutors viewed the footage as proof of intent, while the defense argued it was a tragic accident, emphasizing that Leighton stayed at the scene.
I think certainly there's a big distinction between reckless conduct, reckless driving, and first-degree murder, and I would argue that Mr. Leighton's behavior at the scene is the strongest circumstantial evidence that he lacked an intent to commit murder.
The woman remained hospitalized with critical injuries. In July 2024, Leighton was found guilty of attempted murder and first-degree assault. During sentencing, the victim stated she believed he only regretted not finishing the act. Leighton received a prison sentence of at least 25 years. In July 2010, Norma Lopez disappeared while walking home after her summer school biology class in Moreno Valley, California. Her daily route took her across a dirt field near the home of Jesse Perez Torres. When Norma failed to return home, her family became worried. The next day, her younger sister Sonia discovered Norma's purse and personal items scattered on the ground. Realizing something was terribly wrong, she called 911, prompting a large-scale search. After 5 days, Norma's partially clothed body was found face down under an olive tree, just a few miles from where she had last been seen. More than a year later, in 2011, DNA collected from a broken earring at the scene matched Jesse Torres, who had previously lived in the neighborhood and had provided a DNA sample following a separate arrest. He was arrested and charged with kidnapping and murder. During the trial, the prosecution relied heavily on DNA evidence found on Norma's clothing and accessories. Though the defense challenged the handling and interpretation of the evidence, the jury found Torres guilty in 2019. A week later, they recommended the death penalty, which was formally issued in 2020, bringing some justice to Norma's grieving family nearly a decade after her tragic death. In 2013, Jeremiah Oliver went missing in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. His body was found along a highway in 2014, and was ruled a homicide. In 2017, Jeremiah's mother, Elsa Oliver, and her boyfriend, Alberto Sierra Jr., were convicted for the abuse of Jeremiah's surviving siblings, but no charges related to his death were filed at the time. The case lingered until 2023, when Sierra was charged with murder and disinterment of a body. He pleaded not guilty and was held without bail. The case also highlighted serious failures in protection oversight. The Massachusetts Department of Children and Families, DCF, came under scrutiny after it was revealed that a social worker had failed to make required visits to the Oliver household despite abuse reports. As a result, 3 DCF employees were fired, and Commissioner Olga Roche resigned. Reforms in welfare oversight followed. In 2001, Jonathan Samson was involved in a series of violent crimes across Massachusetts and New Hampshire, including the brutal murders of Jonathan Rizzo and Philip McCloskey, as well as the fatal assault of Robert Whitney. 2 years later, in 2003, Samson pleaded guilty to these crimes and was sentenced to death by a federal jury. However, in 2017, a retrial was ordered when it was revealed that a juror had failed to disclose important information during the original sentencing phase. In the retrial, the jury again sentenced Samson to death for the murder of Rizzo, but for the murder of McCloskey, the jury could not reach a unanimous decision, leading to a life sentence for that crime. Samson also received a life sentence for Whitney's murder after pleading guilty. While incarcerated, Samson's violent behavior continued. He reportedly threatened staff and fellow inmates, showing no remorse for his actions. These incidents played a key role in attempts to reinstate the death penalty in his case. Despite these ongoing legal battles, Samson passed away in 2023 at the age of 62 due to end-stage liver disease while serving his sentence at a federal medical center in Springfield, Missouri, bringing an end to the long legal proceedings surrounding his crimes. In In July 2017, Victor Cuevas became involved in a deadly shooting outside a sushi restaurant in Richmond, Texas. The victim, Jose Cueman Omobhud, was shot and later died at Memorial Hermann Hospital. Cuevas was arrested after returning from Mexico and charged with murder. He was initially held on a $750,000 bond, which was later reduced to $125,000, allowing his release. In November 2020, his bond was revoked after he was arrested again for violating its conditions. On May 9, 2021, Cuevas found himself in trouble once more, but this time for a different reason. A Bengal tiger was seen roaming freely in a West Houston neighborhood, alarming residents. Deputy Wes Mannion, an off-duty officer, spotted the tiger and reported that Cuevas arrived at the scene, claimed ownership of the animal, and quickly fled with it in a white SUV just as police arrived. The following day, Cuevas was arrested and charged with evading arrest. During his bond revocation hearing, Georgie Cuevas, who identified herself as Victor's wife, testified on his behalf.
I'm not asking what people said. That's not what he asked. The question was anybody else in danger? You can ask if she felt like she was in danger, but what everybody else perceived.
Did you witness anyone being threatened in the front yard?
No.
All right. Did you witness anybody with a gun?
Yes.
And who was the gun pointed at?
The animal and the action itself was a Victor.
Okay. And then what did you witness happen next?
Victor was leaving the house.
Okay. Did you and Victor have a conversation?
Yes, to put the animal to safety.
Okay. And so what did you tell? I'm not asking what Victor said. What did you tell Victor to do?
To go into his car.
To do what with the animal?
To put him to safety.
Okay. To put the animal to safety.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was this Victor's animal?
No.
Whose animal was it? Do you know?
No, I don't know the name, but I know it's not Victor's. He was just his caretaker.
Okay, he was caretaking it.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that happens on occasion?
On occasion, yes.
Okay, and that's what was happening on this day?
Yes.
All right. So, was the plan for you to leave as well?
No.
Okay. Were you going?
I was leaving because I was really scared and I wanted to get out of the situation. I didn't know this man was in front of the house. I just wanted to leave. I had like a lot of anxiety and I was really scared. So I headed out. I see.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
So you decided to leave. You were scared.
Yes.
And Victor, you told him to leave to get the animal to safety.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what was happening, right? What was going on outside? Was there like a mob of people out there?
I was in front of Victor in my car, and I see the man with the gun behind him trying to block his way, and that's the only person I see, and I'm really scared.
Did anybody approach you?
Yes. After Victor had left, I stayed there and he went to knock on my window really violently, and I was really scared, and I lowered out my window and I told him I was really scared to talk to him, and he smelled and seemed to be drunk out of his mind and furious. So I told him I didn't want to speak to him. He showed me his badge, and I said I wanted to speak to an officer in a suit because I didn't feel safe. And I said that I was having a panic attack, and he asked me if I wanted to.
Objection to what anybody else said.
All right, so let's kind of break that down a little bit. I want to come back to this in just a minute, but before Victor left, and during the time that Victor left, did anyone say, "This is the police, you cannot leave"?
Objection.
You heard?
No.
All right. And when Victor left, is that correct?
Yes.
Was the police that you saw after Victor chasing him or anything that you saw?
No, never.
Okay. And did anyone tell you or Victor that you could not leave?
No.
She explained that after the encounter with the deputy, she advised Victor to take the tiger away to prevent any harm. She insisted that he was not the tiger's owner, but occasionally cared for it. Georgie described Victor as someone who worked as a mixed martial arts fighter, a barber, and managed an Airbnb property. However, prosecutors challenged her credibility, pointing out inconsistencies in her story. Previously, she had told authorities that she had only recently met Victor through a dating app, contradicting her statements about their close relationship. She also claimed to be a UCLA student pursuing a double major in computer science and physics, and said she had secured a neurosurgery internship at Houston Methodist Hospital. Investigations later found no records to support her academic or internship claims. Despite doubts about her testimony, Georgie cooperated with authorities and helped arrange the safe surrender of the tiger, named India, who was handed over to police and eventually relocated to the Cleveland Amory Black Beauty Ranch. Following the hearing, the judge revoked Cuevas' bond again and set a new one at $300,000. In May 2022, Cuevas faced trial for the 2017 murder and was found guilty. He was sentenced to 18 years in prison and fined $10,000. Later, in December 2023, it was reported that India, the tiger, who had become a symbol of the strange events surrounding Cuevas, died at the sanctuary, with preliminary examinations pointing to cancer as the cause of death. In late April 2019, Brittany Bowens traveled from Houston, Texas to Massachusetts to attend her father's funeral. While she was away, she left her daughter, Malia Davis, in the care of her fiancé, Darien Vince. It was a decision she made with trust, believing Malia would be safe. On April 30th, 2019, surveillance footage captured Malia entering the family's apartment with Vince. Later that same day, cameras recorded Vince leaving the apartment, carrying a blue laundry basket and a black trash bag. He also purchased cleaning supplies from a nearby store. Days later, on May 3rd, Vince contacted police with a troubling story. He claimed he had been attacked by a group of men while stopping to check his car tire on the way to the airport. According to him, he lost consciousness and woke up hours later to find Malia missing. His son, however, was still with him. On May 4th, Vince sought medical help at a hospital, arriving with his son, but without Malia. His explanation raised immediate concerns. Authorities quickly issued an Amber Alert, and a major search for Malia began across Houston. As investigators dug deeper, they noticed inconsistencies in Vince's account. Security footage didn't match his timeline, and the family's car had gone missing. On May 9th, the vehicle was found abandoned in Missouri City. Inside, officers discovered a gas can, a laundry basket, and traces suggesting something was seriously wrong. On May 11th, Darien Vince was arrested and charged with tampering with a human corpse. During his bond hearing, prosecutors presented key pieces of evidence: the suspicious activity at the apartment, the abandoned car, and forensic alerts from trained dogs.
I do have a dim summary, yes.
All right, Mr. Vince, sir, you are here because of a warrant that was issued for your arrest. The warrant charges you with the felony offense of tampering with evidence. Now we're going to hear from the Assistant District Attorney the information that was contained within that warrant.
Your Honor, officers indicate that on May the 4th that they were assigned to investigate the case of a missing, possibly kidnapped 4-year-old child, complainant Malia Davis. In the course of conducting that investigation, officers conducted a recorded interview with the defendant, Darien Vince, in which he stated that on Friday, May the 3rd, that he had left his apartment with the 4-year-old, his 2-year-old son, and his 2-year-old son, and that the three of them had gotten into his girlfriend's silver Nissan Altima, and that at some point while he was driving with the two children that he pulled over to check on the tire of the vehicle after he hit a bump when another vehicle pulled up behind him, and he stated that he was kidnapped by a group of Hispanic males in that truck, received a bullet to his head, and said that he didn't see the car that he was driving again, and then he said that he passed out and woke up on the following evening at an unknown location on Highway 6 near Sugar Land, only with his 2-year-old son with him. He said he eventually got a ride from an unknown female to Methodist Sugar Land Hospital, and that's where he made the outcry that the 4-year-old daughter was missing. He said that police said that the defendant told them that there should not be any blood in his apartment. The officer reviewed video surveillance then from the porch of the neighbor's apartment next to the defendant's apartment. And the footage showed that at 1:40 p.m. on Friday, May the 3rd, that they recognized the defendant carrying out from the apartment, outside the apartment, from inside to outside, a large blue laundry basket with a large black trash bag inside. defendant is seen to walk out of the camera's view and then return about 3 minutes later without the basket. He's then observed walking out of the apartment with cleaning supplies, including bleach. They did not view the complainant ever leaving the apartment. They did see the defendant leave later with only his 2-year-old son from the apartment. The complainant was not seen leaving the apartment at all. And then on Sunday, May the 5th, they go to the apartment and met with the defendant's girlfriend, Brittany Bowens, and with consent, they entered the apartment and observed drops of blood in the hallway leading to the bathroom of the apartment on various surfaces of the bathroom. Crime scene investigators were called out. There was a chemical reagent that was sprayed that reacted to blood in the hallway and bathroom of the apartment, reacted to the presence of blood that was not visible to the unaided eye. Samples were collected for further testing. On Friday, May the 10th, the silver Nissan Altima driven by the defendant was processed for evidence. There was a blue laundry basket, similar in appearance to the blue laundry basket that he's observed on the video surveillance carrying out of the apartment on the night of the 3rd. There were canine dogs that were trained to sniff the scent of a cadaver that walked around the vehicle and other vehicles in the parking lot, and both of the dogs reacted to the trunk of the silver Nissan that the defendant had driven and that the blue laundry basket was recovered from, indicating that the dogs were responding to the scent of decomposition, human decomposition in the vehicle. And so at this point, a warrant was obtained for tampering with a corpse, a human corpse.
And Mr. Vince, that was the information that was contained in the warrant, and that warrant was already signed for your arrest. It means that the judge who signed the warrant determined that there is probable cause in this case.
Despite Vince's attorney arguing that the evidence was circumstantial, the judge ruled that the seriousness of the allegations warranted the high bond.
Looking at the schedule, Judge, I believe this was his first arrest. Looking at the schedule, I was supposed that he would be between below risk and average risk. And Judge, I'm asking for a $5,000 bond and would defer all considerations of PR to the court.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Staten.
Given the fact that there's clearly a continued investigation into a very serious crime involving the death of that 4-year-old, and that the defendant, at least in this particular instance, is connected with the death, and there's evidence of deception on the part of the defendant with regard to information that he gave the police in a recorded statement. State's asking for a $500,000 bond, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Staten. All right, this court, as I'm sure everyone present in this courtroom is aware of this case, it has received much media attention, a lot of notoriety associated with this case, partially because the complaining witness, Miss Malia, is an adorable 4-year-old little girl, and I think she's captured the hearts and the attention of just about everyone in the world. So this court is aware of a lot of the facts that were not contained within the warrant, including the fact that Malia had suffered a traumatic brain injury while she was in the care of Mr. Vince and Miss Brittany Bowens. The court is also aware that Malia was returned to the custody of Mr. Vince and Miss Bowens despite that traumatic brain injury that she suffered. This court is aware that at some point in time, HPD was unable to locate Mr. Vince's whereabouts So in addition to deception, in addition to the changing stories, this court has a significant concern that Mr. Vince would not appear in court because of the ongoing investigation, which is likely to result in an upgrade, a significant upgrade to this second-degree felony. And so the court is setting the bond in this case, Mr. Vince, in the amount of $1 million. Mr. Vince, sir, are you a citizen of the United States? Thank you, sir. You may return to your seat at this time.
The bond was set at $1 million. While Vince remained in custody, the search for Malia continued. Volunteers, community members, and law enforcement worked tirelessly, hoping for a breakthrough. On May 31st, activist Quanell X revealed that Vince had privately admitted that Malia had accidentally passed away and provided a location to search near Hope, Arkansas. That same day, road workers found a black trash bag along Interstate 30 in Arkansas. Authorities later confirmed through DNA testing that the remains inside belonged to Malia Davis.
I believe that 40-year sentence really does not equal the punishment and the harm and the injury that he caused young Malia Davis. I'm so careful in what I say because I have so much anger in the words that I'm saying now, so I want to be careful not to allow that to show. But what he told me that he did from his own mouth, 40 years should have been double in this case, but I don't blame the prosecutors because Malia's body, when it was found, and he confessed to me what he did with the body and where it was, because of the amount of time that had passed, the medical examiner's office had a difficult time determining the actual cause of death. And so that was a big issue for the prosecutors, I'm sure. But I know what he said to me that he did, that he was angry with Brittany because she was going out of town. And he did not believe that she was doing exactly what she said she was going to do. She was going to do something else and go to her father's funeral. And I believe out of anger, as he said to me, he struck young Malia in the head, as he had done in the past, that Brittany helped cover up. And that when she fell to the ground and she started bleeding from her nose and bleeding from her ears, and she wouldn't wake up, she wouldn't move, then he knew that he had done irreparable damage to that child.
In August 2019, a grand jury indicted Vince, adding the charge of injury to a child. After prolonged legal proceedings, Vince eventually pleaded guilty in May 2021 to tampering with a corpse and was sentenced to 40 years in prison. On November 1st, 2019, Houston's beloved oddities shop, The Wild Collection, was engulfed in flames, marking a tragic chapter in the city's history. The store, located in the Heights, was a cherished cultural hub known for its eclectic collection of rare and unusual artifacts. The fire was intentionally set by Jonathan Gindra, a local artist with a reputation for experimental music and performance art. Gindra entered The Wild Collection during business hours, carrying 2 gasoline cans. He poured gasoline across the floor and ignited the flames using rolled-up socks. The fire quickly spread, causing extensive damage to the store and destroying much of its one-of-a-kind items. Fortunately, no one was physically harmed, though the store's beloved cat, Nevermore, tragically lost its life in the blaze. During the investigation, Gindra informed authorities that he believed he was acting on divine instruction received on Halloween night, claiming that God told him to burn the store. He also mentioned that his ex-girlfriend worked at the store, although she was not present during the incident. Court records suggest that Gindra may have been experiencing mental health issues at the time. A bystander and an off-duty police officer detained Gindra at the scene until authorities arrived. Gindra was charged with felony arson and appeared in court shortly after the incident.
Sir, you were charged with the felony offense of arson.
Officers were dispatched to a structural front. Investigators conducted an origin and cause investigation, determined the fire originated in the front room, approximately 3 feet from the front door. The fire was caused by the defendant using 2 gasoline cans to pour gasoline on the floor before using a lighter to ignite a sock that he threw in gasoline before a store employee forced him out of the store, detained him until officers arrived. Officers interviewed the witness, who stated that he worked at the store. A witness, the defendant, walk into the store, pour something from a gasoline can on the floor. Stated there was a flash of fire near the defendant, so he ran and got a fire extinguisher, attempted to put out the fire, but it grew too quickly. He stated he then helped people exit the store out the side door. Officers interviewed the defendant, read him his Miranda rights. The defendant stated his ex-girlfriend works at the store and that he has been familiar with that store for a long time. He stated he has warned them to change things, but they don't listen. He stated God told him he needed to do. He stated last night on Halloween, God spoke to him, told him he needed to burn the store. He stated he got up this day, went to Walmart, purchased 2 gas cans before going to a gas station down the street from the store to fill them. The defendant stated he was nervous, so he drank a couple of beers before going to the store. He stated he walked in the front door of the store, poured gasoline on the floor. He stated he had rolled up socks with him that he then lit on fire and threw them onto the gasoline so he could burn the building down. I have a sworn statement from an officer stating that the ex-girlfriend was not in the building. Other employees and customers were in the store when the defendant ignited the fire. The defendant stated that it is not personal, but he was trying to fulfill the book of Revelations.
Jindra expressed a desire to represent himself and requested to be detained without bail, claiming he is a prophet.
Are you a United States citizen?
Yes.
Do you consent to allow Mr. Garcia to represent you at this bond hearing?
I don't want a bond. I would like to be detained until I can have a trial and I can state to you my very clear point of view. I have so much proof. I've proven to hundreds of people that I'm a prophet. Trust me.
So you do not want Mr. Garcia?
I would like to be detained until trial. I have so much to say.
Ms. Kennedy?
Your Honor, the state is requesting a $50,000 bond since a deadly weapon fire was used during the commission of the offense against a pretrial release and 1622.
Yeah, I got that. Okay, Mr. Jindra, I'm going to set your bond at $50,000. You don't have to make it if you don't want to. If you don't make the bond, you'll sit in custody until your trial. Okay?
In custody, being in this room or in a cell?
No, they'll house you, not in this room.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Despite his request, the judge set his bond at $50,000. The aftermath of the fire saw the Wild collection facing significant financial losses, with damages estimated at $120,000. In the wake of the destruction, the community rallied around the store's owners, lawyer Douglas and Tyler Zottarell, offering support and raising funds for recovery efforts. However, despite initial hopes for rebuilding, the challenges proved overwhelming. By October 2024, the building was demolished, closing the chapter on any efforts to restore the Wild collection to its former state. Jonathan Jindra was convicted of arson and is currently serving a 15-year prison sentence. He remains incarcerated with parole denied. Despite the loss of the Wild collection, its impact on Houston's cultural scene remains, as the memories of its unique offerings live on in the hearts of those who frequented the store. In October 2020, 20-year-old Julie De La Garza was riding through Cypress, Texas with her boyfriend, Francisco Gonzalez. Unbeknownst to them, Julie's ex-boyfriend, 21-year-old Man Austin Hayes, was following closely behind in his white Toyota. Friends later said there had been lingering tensions and jealousy after Julie ended her relationship with Hayes. As the couple drove along the Northwest Freeway near Spring Cypress, Hayes reportedly began tailing their truck more aggressively. Without warning, he opened fire. Julie was shot. Francisco rushed her to a nearby emergency room, and from there she was airlifted to a hospital at the Texas Medical Center. Despite doctors' efforts, Julie De La Garza passed away the next day. Meanwhile, Hayes fled the scene, abandoning his car at a nearby business complex. A manhunt quickly began. After a few days on the run, Hayes surrendered at his attorney's office. Initially, he was charged with aggravated assault, but after Julie's death, the charge was upgraded to murder.
On Sunday, October 18, 2020, deputies were dispatched to North Cypress Emergency Room located at 26271 Northwest Freeway in Cypress, Harris County, Texas. The Harris County Sheriff's Office dispatch received the 911 call where the caller stated his girlfriend was just shot in the head. The caller stated his girlfriend, later identified as Julie De La Garza, had been shot by her ex-boyfriend, Austin Hayes, the defendant. The caller was later identified as Francisco Gonzalez, the witness. The complainant was life-flighted to Memorial Hermann Hospital in the medical center. The complainant was evaluated by doctors. The complainant had a gunshot wound to the left side of her face. The complainant had catastrophic injuries and would not survive without a ventilator due to spinal cord damage. Officers interviewed the witness, Francisco Gonzalez. He advised that he arrived at the residence and observed a male who he knows by name and sight as man Austin Hayes, the defendant, throwing trash into his mom's front yard, located at 16139 Little Cypress Lane, Cypress, Texas, in Harris County. The trash was thrown into the witness's yard. It was examined and a Starbucks cup was found with the defendant's name on it. The witness advised he followed the vehicle and observed the vehicle's license plate to be HBL 0924. The witness stated he only observed the defendant inside of the vehicle. The witness advised he was following the defendant. He observed a Cy-Fair ISD police officer in the parking lot of a Forney Elementary School. He pulled in and made contact with the officer, Melinda Wilson, to advise her of the situation. The witness advised he provided the officer with the vehicle license plate and defendant information. The witness left the school. The witness advised as soon as he turned onto Spring Cypress, the complainant stated the defendant was behind them again. The witness advised immediately after the complainant said they were being followed by the defendant, he heard fire and then the complainant began bleeding from her cheek. The bullet came through the back window of the vehicle, the headrest of the front seat passenger seat, and went into the complainant. The witness advised they were traveling south in the 16,200 block of Spring Cypress Road in Harris County when the shooting occurred. The witness advised the defendant was tailgating them at the time of the shooting. The witness advised he did a U-turn to get away from the defendant. The witness advised he called 911 and traveled to the nearest emergency room. The officer showed the witness a booking photo of the defendant. The witness made a positive identification on Monday, October 19, 2020. The complainant, Julie De La Garza, succumbed to her injuries and passed away.
During court proceedings, it came out that Hayes was already on probation for a previous aggravated assault involving a deadly weapon, as well as a drug-related offense.
In both cases?
Let's see this. Oh, yes. It's an ag assault family member.
I was showing the same complainant in...
Yes, so it will be dismissed, and we're proceeding with the murder.
Okay. All right. Okay. So again, looking at the totality of circumstance, so at this point as it relates to Beul, we're only dealing with the murder charge. However, it appears as though Mr. Hayes is currently on probation for an aggravated assault with a deadly weapon charge. This probation began March the 10th of 2020. Additionally, Mr. Hayes is currently on probation for a possession of a controlled substance charge, both out of the 179th District Court, and that probation also started on March the 10th of 2020. So looking at the totality of the circumstances, Mr. Hayes is on probation for a violent crime. He's also on probation for a drug offense. So again, look and considering the fact, circumstances of the instant case, the court, one second here. The court is not going to approve a personal bond. The court is going to set bail at $250,000. As conditions, if Mr. Hayes is able to make bail, as conditions of bail, we will order a GPS monitoring device, no contact with the family of Julie De La Garza, no contact with Francisco Gonzalez, no weapons, no firearms. Mr. Hayes will have to surrender his passport. Those will be in the event that Mr. David make bail, those will be conditions of a bail. And additionally, we will ask for a curfew. There will be a curfew from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m.
Given his criminal history, the judge set his bail at $250,000 and ordered strict conditions, including GPS monitoring, house arrest, and no contact with Julie's family or Francisco. Julie's death devastated her loved ones. Friends and family described her as a kind and positive young woman who had already been through great loss, having lost her mother just 2 years earlier. Big thanks to our viewers for joining the courtroom journey with us. Your interest in the stories of justice is what keeps our channel alive.